So typically we do some more club business, but because of our special speaker today, we're going to go right to the program. So I'd like to introduce Councilwoman Jolie Justus, Kansas City 4th District Representative, and she was one of her main roles as she's been appointed by Mayor Sly James as the chair of the airport committee, so she'll talk about that, I'm sure, today. She's been in public service for a while. Jolie has served as Missouri State Senator. She's involved in many support areas for her neighborhood. She focuses on helping the community through neighborhood development, reinvestment, and she's has a law degree from UMKC Law School. She has an undergrad from Missouri State. And without me speaking anymore, we do want to hear from her. So welcome, Councilwoman Jolie Justus.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you today. A couple of things before I get started. Number one, I do want to apologize for having to jump up a little bit on the agenda. On Thursdays, it's City Council Day, as Chuck knows, over at City Hall. And we actually get started at 1 o'clock. And so I'll need to be able to scoot out by 12:45 so that I can help them get a quorum over at City Hall at 1 o'clock. So my apologies for leaving at 12:45 today. And second, I just want to say how exciting it is to be here in front of a Rotary Club today. I'm from a Rotary family. I grew up with my father very active in our Rotary Club. As a matter of fact, for years he would take me to the father-son banquets at Rotary. Spent a lot of time doing that until my mother finally gave him a son that he could take to those. And then of course, we spent a lot of times having guests from across the world, both youth and Rotarians, staying in our homes and visiting in their homes internationally. And it just really makes me happy today to see this tradition still alive, and I'll be excited to go home tonight and tell my dad that I got to spend lunch with the Rotarians today, just as I presume he is doing the same thing right now. Going to talk today about the airport, and I'm going to acknowledge right up front that there are about 479,000 people in the city of Kansas City, Missouri, and I think there are 479,000 opinions about KCI. I am respectful of that, and I'm going to tell you about my journey and how I've come to where I am today. So when I first got elected but hadn't been sworn in yet, the mayor called me into his office and asked me what things I wanted to work on. And I told him about my 8 years in the Senate. I told him what things I focused on down there. There was a time when I was the minority leader in the state Senate when there were only 7 members of my party in a 34-member chamber. And during that time, I actually had to serve on 23 committees at the same time. There were so few of us that we had to spread ourselves a little thin. But during that time, I really got a background on a whole lot of different issues. And so I told the mayor, and this was a rookie mistake, that I was willing to work on anything, that I would be happy to, he could put me in wherever he wanted me. I said, the one thing I really don't want to have anything to do with at all is the airport. I told him that I didn't have an opinion one way or the other, that frankly I traveled by train, foot, and bicycle more than just about anything, that I did go in and out of the airport about 12 to 16 times a year, but that I just didn't have a deeply held opinion and didn't really want to have anything to do with it. So the mayor, and many of you know the mayor, decided to take that and run with it. He then invented a committee called the Airport Committee and made me the chair of it. So I guess that was a lesson learned, that you should always not lead with that what you don't want to do, because you'll end up probably having to do it. So I embarked on a journey of learning how airports are built, what airports' needs are, how they're financed, and I have spent the last about 14 months of my life learning all about airports, probably more than anybody would ever need to know. And I learned a few things, and I kind of just want to start and lay those out for you today. I'm only going to talk for a few minutes because I know that there's a lot of give and take, and I want to make sure that we have time for questions and answers, and I want to make sure that we have time to have this dialogue continue forward even after today. So, what I learned, and many of you learned about it the same way, is that several years back, our current, or at the time, aviation director announced that Kansas City International needed a new terminal, that we needed to build a new terminal, and that was how we were going to handle things. Now, that came as a shock to most of us in Kansas City because we'd not heard really much about this before. And frankly, it was not even remotely well received. Folks were absolutely livid about it. There was no question that people loved their airport and had no interest whatsoever in making changes at the airport. So that was the first thing that happened. In response to that, there was a terminal group that was put together of citizens, an advisory group that got together, and over the course of about 12 to 14 months, they sat down and went through a process of learning what I've gone through over the last year or so on things like, what do modern airports need? What is convenience? What do modern airports require? What are the things we have to have? How are airports financed? At the end of that conversation, they came to the conclusion, just as the aviation department did, that Kansas City is in need of a new single terminal. That was their decision. One really big problem, as far as I can tell with that decision, was that at the time, the airlines were not at the table. The airlines, who are presumably one of the biggest customers as it comes to airports, were not sitting there. And the reason that that was very critical is because airlines pay for airports. Their passenger charges, their fees that they collect, are how we pay for airports. And so it was incredibly important that they were at the table, but they were not. And part of it was because I don't think at that point, and this is something that they've said since that time, that they actually felt that they needed a new airport. They thought, you know what, we've been stumbling along here, we can continue to bump out this and move that, and we'll be able to get through this process. But as airline industry continued to change, as airplanes got smaller and bigger and smaller and bigger, as security needs changed dramatically over the years, including the very year that KCI opened, which was the first year when we had a hijacking crisis, that we found out that we were going to have to start separating the area between ticketing and boarding. And then, of course, everything that happened after 9/11 and the security that comes in and the needs that are there. They just thought at the time that they didn't need a new airport. And then when they saw that our aviation department was requesting it and that a citizens advisory group was pushing for it, they said, you know what, all right, let's sit down and roll up our sleeves and figure out what it is we need as an airline industry. So at that point, a group called the Leadership Committee got together, and the Leadership Committee was made up by the airlines. It was also made up by folks at City Hall and the Aviation Department. And they got together, and Southwest Airlines has said when they first went into that process, and they are our largest provider here in Kansas City, that they thought that they wanted a major renovation of our existing terminals, that's what they thought they wanted when they went into this process. But then over a 14-month period, as they sat and looked at all of the issues relating to airline industry today, they actually became converts. And at the end of this, and many of you know this, in April of this year, they came forward and said, you know what? We need a new single terminal. That is what is going to meet our needs, and if we're going to be the ones to pay for it and back that debt, then we absolutely want a new terminal and not a major renovation. That's what we're willing to pay for. So that was their process. But I want to tell you just a little bit about the process in case you didn't know. When this group first sat down, they went and they spent a significant amount of time looking at all of the issues that are out there in the community. And they found very quickly that the two primary issues that Kansas Cityans care about when it comes to their airport is customer convenience and affordability. So everything they did over the next 14 months was looking through that lens. Is a new airport going to be convenient, and is a new airport going to be affordable? Those were their two primary factors. Now it's interesting because when you start to really get down into the weeds, you learn as you talk to people in the airline industry that really, in today's modern airline industry, the first thing you have to do is actually design your baggage handling facility, and then you design your airport around it. And that's because of the requirements that we have for baggage handling in this post 9/11 world. And so once they figured that out, that they were going to have to build a new terminal or build something that handled their baggage handling's needs, but also had that convenience and affordability. They sat down and started going through the process. And one of the things that they did is they came up with, and this is and I did not bring copies of this to everyone today because I didn't want to kill that many trees, but all of this is available online at www.kcmo.org under the Airport Committee's link. You can find all of these things online. But what they did is they went through and they looked at, and you probably can't see this from your seat, but they looked at over 18 different designs. And they spent a year and a half going through all of these different designs to figure out what would meet the needs the best for our city. And at the end of that process, after they took in all of the different considerations, having to do with the current maintenance needs, having to do with the extreme increase in passengers that we've had in Kansas City and their expectation that those numbers will continue to rise, they determined that they did not want a major renovation. And they did not want a major renovation because the amount of money it would take to meet their current and future needs, it was actually more reasonable to build a new terminal. So what they determined is that they would like to see a new terminal, that they would like to pay for it, and they would like to back the debt. Now this is something that will go to a vote of the people of Kansas City. This is something that our previous council and the mayor passed an ordinance and said, we will put this before a vote of the people. And so, as many of you know, in April of last year, this recommendation was made, and then shortly thereafter, there was some polling done that showed, you know what, Kansas City, City Hall, Aviation Department, airlines, you haven't done your work explaining to the public why this needs to happen. And the polling showed that most folks didn't know that airlines pay for airports. Most folks believed that we were having to choose an airport over other basic city services like police and trash and roads, which is not the case. This is a completely different fund that comes solely from user fees. And so folks were saying, Kansas City, we want you to address these basic needs first before we go to something like the airport. So it was very clear that a significant amount of public education needed to be done, that we needed to get buy-in across the city. Now, a lot of folks say, well, this is a regional amenity. Why on earth is it up to Kansas City, Missouri voters to make a decision on something that, frankly, not a whole lot of Kansas City voters use? Most of the statistics show that KCI passengers, actually less than 20% of those passengers are from Kansas City, Missouri. That the vast majority of people who use KCI are from the metro area and beyond. We are a regional hub, not a hub, that's a bad word, sorry. We are a regional airport though, and folks come from all over the states around us to use our airport. And so one of the things that people often ask is, why is it the case that we have to put this in front of a vote of the people? And the answer is, number one, the city council made that commitment, the mayor made that commitment, and they're going to stick to it. And then number two, regardless of what happens, we all know that in this environment, there's a very good chance that if the city council were to pass something, that someone would collect the signatures necessary to put it in front of a vote of the people anyway. And so why not go out and build the public trust and the public education necessary so that when this goes before a vote of the people, that people understand, number one, what they're voting for, and number two, that they can get behind it. So right now, what the City Hall, or what we've done on the City Council and what the mayor and the city manager are doing, is they are focusing on what they heard the citizens of Kansas City want the most right now, which is attention to basic infrastructure. Let's take care of the things that we have right now in Kansas City that for too long have been kicked down the road. So you've probably heard, it's the worst kept secret in, I think, probably ever at City Hall, that the city manager and the mayor are looking at putting a general obligation bond before the voters of Kansas City next April. That general obligation bond would be focusing on those basic infrastructure needs that we have been told the citizens of Kansas City want. At the same time, I heard loud and clear that there is much, much more need for public education regarding the need for a new KCI. I don't think folks understand how this current configuration and how the current maintenance at KCI is holding us back. And it became most telling to me when I went down to Dallas to meet with the CEO of Southwest Airlines. And as we sat next to the CEO, and he looked at us, he said, number one, I want to let you know we love Kansas City. We really, really love your city, and we want to expand. But number two, we cannot expand in your current configuration. We cannot give you more flights in and out of Kansas City so that you can go places without connections unless you change your configuration. So the first question is, well, why is that? And the answer was because we can't send connecting flights through your city because the customer experience is so horrible. We cannot send flights that go from New Jersey to Kansas City to LA because we cannot guarantee that our customers will have a positive experience. Well, what do you mean about positive experience? Well, number one, as you know, the area on the other side of security, once you're through security, it's very small, and we cannot expand it any further. We have a situation where we cannot go further out onto the tarmac or onto the runways because the airlines actually need that space in order to take off and manage their flights. So we have a situation where there's very little place to wait. There are very few bathrooms. There's not really a place to get a drink, a cup of coffee, that sort of thing. No place to plug your phone in. It can be very tight in there. Now, for those of us who live in Kansas City and all we're doing is running in, jumping on a plane, not dropping off any baggage and flying away and coming back, oftentimes our convenience experience is a good one. I unfortunately may be one of those people with horrible travel karma because my experience never seems to go quite as smoothly. I went out on a business trip a couple of weeks ago. It was a Thursday evening, and I took Uber to the airport. I hopped out. It took me 5-6 steps to get across the line, and then it took me 55 minutes to get through security and get into my gate area. Once I got in the gate area, it was of course standing room only. There was no place to charge my phone. There was nothing to get a drink, and many of you don't care about these things. But I will tell you that airlines know that most of their traveling passengers do care about this. And the reason they won't send folks through KCI for their connecting flights is because when their customers complain, they don't complain about KCI, they complain about Southwest. They say this is a bad experience, and next time I'm going to give my business to somebody else. So both Southwest Airlines and American Airlines, which by the way has an even rougher time because they don't even have enough space right now to do the TSA pre-check because of the configuration of the terminals. But all of the airlines, and what I've been told in the industry may be a first, unanimously agree, number one, we want to build a new airport. Number two, we want to pay for it. Number three, we want to back the debt. And we all agree with it. And if we do this, you will get more flights. Kansas City, you will get more flights. And so that is ultimately what led me to where I am today, which I am very supportive of a new single terminal. I think that we need it, number one, so that we can continue to grow as a city. Number two, so that our business travelers, and many of our businesses here in Kansas City, send out dozens, if not hundreds of employees every Monday morning flying across this country. And we need to make sure that they have the experience or the tools that they need in order to continue to grow. And one of the ways we can do that is to have a modern, affordable, convenient terminal airport, and that's what we're working towards at this point. So, I'm going to wrap it up and open it up for questions, but one of the things that I want to do first, because I want to make sure that I answer one of the questions that I anticipate is, what's stopping you? And the answer is nothing's stopping us. As I mentioned, right now we are simply on pause as far as the decision making is concerned, because one of the things that we need to do is go out in the community and doing what I'm doing right now, which is number one, telling you what I've learned, but then number two, listening to you about your continued concerns and how we can make this better. Once we get past April, and if we as a city decide we're going to go ahead and pass this general obligation bond and start working on those other issues, then we can start to talk again about how we move this idea forward. But until then, I just want you to know this. We have complete unanimity. Every one of the airlines that services Kansas City says that they want a new terminal and they want to pay for it. And number two, American Airlines and Southwest Airlines have said, if you do this, Kansas City, you will have more flight options. And that was what sold me. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Steve?
I understand that Congressman Graves, who's in his district, has not been supportive. Has any of that changed?
We continue to communicate with Congressman Graves about his support of the airport. He, like many folks in the area, felt exactly the same way. I've got a convenient airport, why would I want to change it? He has not publicly changed that opinion. We continue to work with his staff locally and on the DC level to show him the latest facts and data. And we will continue to work on that, and my goal is to, and I will also say this, it's very important to know that Congressman Graves also had a very poor working relationship with our previous aviation director, and that is not the case with our new aviation director who took charge, I believe, in May of this year.
My question is, I am a Northlander. Unfortunately, I live in Blackstone and can't vote, but I think your biggest stumbling block is the Northland people. And how are you going to really get all this out to the Northland people? Because that's a big percentage of the vote. If you can swing Clay County and Black County, you've pretty much got it made. And also, would we ever become a hub?
Okay, well, I will answer the first portion, which is, I believe that the no votes for the KCI are not all concentrated in the Northland. I believe they are all throughout our city. But I also understand the absolute importance of the Northland. And I will say this, I'm having continuing conversations with the Northland Chamber of Commerce, the Platte County Economic Development Corporation, and others who understand the importance of this for our region. And everybody right now in the business and civic community is lining up to do exactly what you're talking about, which is convince folks, whether they live in the Northland or in the far south part of Kansas City, that this is the right, responsible, conservative thing to do for our city. So that's what we're doing. As far as the hub piece is concerned, there is no way I can answer that. There are no plans, and nobody is looking at Kansas City for becoming a hub. As you've probably seen over the past 10 years, airlines merged, it seems like on a daily basis anymore, and nobody is talking about Kansas City becoming a hub. I will tell you, we would never be considered, though, if we had our current configuration. If we want to ever be considered for that. But what you're finding more and more is that airlines are really going away from this hub concept anyway, and airport planners, the folks who make the decisions on where airplanes are going to take off and land, they are looking at different things right now. I did have some discouraging news from the man who decides where all Southwest Airlines fly. He is based in their Dallas airport, or their Dallas facility. And he said that his wife, who makes the travel decisions for their personal life, has given him 2 rules when they fly personally. Number 1, they're never allowed to fly in and out of LAX. She hates LAX. And number 2, she refuses to get on a flight that connects through Kansas City. Well, that was discouraging to me to know that the guy who decides how many flights come into Kansas City, that his wife actually won't let them fly into Kansas City because of the connecting experience. I know that until we fix that issue, we will not ever be considered to be a hub, and so that's something that we've got to do.
Questions? Jared?
Can you talk a little bit more about the affordability piece and potentially what those per passenger fees would look like and how that compares to some of our peer cities?
Right, absolutely. So the question has to do with the affordability, and I want to make sure I get facts and data and not false information. So I've mentioned that it's user fees that pay for airports. And user fees are set in a negotiation every year between the airlines and the airport that they serve. And so right now, our per passenger fee is fairly low. We have a fairly low fee because frankly, they don't have any major construction going on at KCI right now, not a lot of things that the airlines need to pay for. One of the questions we immediately asked is, are our tickets gonna go up dramatically? And is it gonna be more expensive to fly in and out of Kansas City? And the answer is no. Right now, we see over in St. Louis, for instance, their passenger fees are almost double what our passenger fees are here in Kansas City, but it's actually cheaper to fly in and out of St. Louis than it is to fly in and out of Kansas City. Why is that? Because airlines set their ticket prices based on the price of gas and the number of passengers. That's what they set their tickets on. So it all has to do with how airlines make money. Remember, these are for-profit corporations. These are for-profit corporations, and what they want to do is raise their profits. How do they raise their profits? They get airline passengers who are loyal to them. How do they do that? By absolutely giving them competitive pricing, and number two, making sure that their flight experience is good. So that's how you keep that down. We are looking at an increase of about $2.10 per passenger as far as the passenger fee is concerned. You will also see an increase in parking prices, which you will see regardless of whether we build a new terminal. So we will have to increase our parking prices regardless of what we do. That's what you're going to see. I do want to answer one more question that maybe I didn't answer, which is, well, what does the design look like? And the answer is, that is all up for discussion. If we as a city decide that we want a new airport, then the city will issue an RFP, an RFQ, an RFI, an RF whatever, and we will have the designers and the engineers and the architects bid for that business, and they will come up with the design. What the airlines have said is, we want a single terminal, and we want it to cost roughly $800 million. Those would be the guidelines. Now, of course, that's in today dollars.
How about two more questions, okay?
Be great.
Okay, done.
Okay, so you just partially answered my question, but I want to see if you can take it a step further. I'm somebody who has not supported it, and I am changing my mind, but there's one really, really important piece that will make up my mind. If we get an airport like Philadelphia, I will absolutely vote no. If we get an airport like Dallas Love Field, I will absolutely vote yes. So is there any thought of what this airport's going to be like? Like, what kind of models are they seriously looking at?
Well, you know, the models that they looked at, and I would encourage you highly to go to kcmo.org and look at the terminal plans that are out there, knowing that that is roughly what they are looking at. I have spent time at both of the airports that you're talking about. I will tell you, we're looking at more of a Dallas Love Field, because we are looking at a Kansas City size, Kansas City convenient airport. I believe, and you can laugh at me, and I'm happy to take the laughter, I'm in the business of taking arrows from the public. I believe this airport will be more convenient than our existing airport. I believe that because we will have separate departure and arrival areas. We will have a fast, efficient way to get through security. And I believe ultimately you will find that it makes more sense for Kansas City than the makeup that we have right now.
Councilwoman Justus, thank you for your time, and just want to make sure that we acknowledge you for your presentation today. Rotary is about service, and we want to thank you for your service to Kansas City and our community. So, thank you very much.